I can look back now and see that the more I battled, struggled, and fought, the more I heaped pressure on myself. This added pressure and stress continued to fuel the fire of anxiety. It played right into the hands of my social anxiety and continued to keep the vicious cycle of anxiety going in my life. The only way that we can overcome an anxiety disorder is by understanding this paradox and learning to act accordingly. We cannot fight, battle, struggle, kill, or destroy anxiety through our own efforts. Instead, if we learn to stop doing these aggressive things, which are all negative emotions, if we learn to stop adding gasoline to the fire and reinforcing the anxiety, then the anxiety has no choice but to shrink and shrink and shrink. At this point, you may be asking, well, how do I do that? Don't worry, we are heading in that direction now, and I will give you step-by-step instructions. What we need to do first is to accept ourselves, just as we are right now, warts and all. There is nothing wrong with you at all. Rationally, you know you are a good person, a considerate person, one who doesn't like confrontations and doesn't enjoy hurting other people's feelings. Next, we need to accept that although we are okay, we have an anxiety disorder we don't like. It's okay to tell your brain the truth. You can say to yourself, I am basically a good, decent person, and I have an anxiety problem. That is all rational and true. But now we will add to this statement. This statement is also rational and true. I may have lived with social anxiety for a long time, but now I am learning how to decrease it and how to move past it. I don't understand all the details, and I haven't put all the pieces of the puzzle together yet, but I am heading in that direction. And it is my choice, my determined choice, to keep moving in this healthy and helpful direction at all times. I am not a quitter, and I refuse to give up. I know that if I don't give up, then anxiety will have no choice but to shrink and shrink until it is gone. By accepting yourself, by accepting the fact that you currently have an anxiety problem, and by learning to stop beating yourself up because of it, you are learning not to use the negative emotions. When you stop using your negative emotions against social anxiety, you will be closer to reducing your anxiety and nearer to the goal of overcoming it. The whole process of overcoming anxiety is counterintuitive. It is a paradox. So it is particularly important that you understand this concept. If you keep fighting the anxiety will win. If you keep rehashing the past and bemoaning your fate, the anxiety will win. If you keep comparing yourself to others and feeling left out and alone, the anxiety will win. If you keep forcing yourself to do highly anxious activities, thinking that facing your fear will make it go away, then anxiety will win. After all, we have faced our fears almost every day of our lives, and the anxiety has not gone away yet. Any negative emotion you try to use to destroy anxiety will only strengthen it and destroy your life instead. That which you resist persists. Think about this little saying for a minute, because it encapsulates the whole meaning of the anxiety paradox. That which you resist persists. Anxiety loves it when you feel hopeless and dejected. It has you trapped. Anxiety loves it when you curse fate for making you socially anxious. It has you trapped. Anxiety loves it when you get depressed and think you'll never get any better. It has you trapped. Anxiety loves it when you verbalize defeat and say that you can't see light at the end of the tunnel. It has you trapped. Anxiety will only respond to us and begin to disappear when we approach it using our positive emotions. By staying in our positive emotions as much as we can and not using our own old negative strategies to try to conquer anxiety, we will actually make progress against it. As we do this, it makes it easier for us to realize what anxiety has been doing to us all these years. And now, with a little bit of knowledge, we're going to learn how to respond differently. On one of the original Star Trek episodes, an alien energy force has taken over the Enterprise and shut down its life support systems. The ship is running out of oxygen, and the lights are growing dimmer and dimmer. Captain Kirk, always the aggressive, battling commander, is convinced the alien entity can somehow be destroyed through active, aggressive methods. He is convinced that the ship's laser guns will kill the alien intruder if they can only find it in time. As the episode proceeds, and the captain and crew continue to plot aggressive strategies against this alien energy force, the entity only grows stronger. The oxygen supply drops, and the lights grow even dimmer. In fact, the more and more aggressive Captain Kirk gets, the more the alien energy force seems to grow. Now, this is a paradox. The use of force and aggression is supposed to bring results. But in this case, the use of force just seems to make the situation worse. Of course, in the end, it is the cool and calm Mr. Spock who figures out the answer to this paradox. Mr. Spock correctly deduces that since all the negative, battling, aggressive methods have not worked, then paradoxically, the opposite is likely to work. He convinces Captain Kirk to disarm the crew and to issue general orders that they are no longer to battle the alien energy force. There is to be no fighting, no aggression, no use of weapons. No one is allowed to plot strategy. Instead, everyone is ordered to smile, to tell jokes, to sing, to be lighthearted. They are even ordered to laugh at the alien energy force and not to take it seriously at all, even though it is jeopardizing their lives. So what happens? When there is no negative emotion to fuel it, the alien energy force has no choice. It begins to shrink. Its fuel, its food, its power was the fighting, aggressive emotions the Enterprise crew was using to kill it. When Mr. Spock stopped the crew from using any of their negative emotions, the alien energy force had no choice but to begin to shrink and eventually disappear. In a short while, the alien entity was gone. The oxygen supply flowed freely, and the lights began to shine. The captain and crew had literally shrunk the alien energy force to death. Mr. Spock used a paradox to save his ship from disaster. We will use the fighting paradox to save our lives from social anxiety, which is certainly another type of disaster. Consider this again. That which you resist persists. If we continue to use negative emotions against our anxiety, which is already a negative emotion, it will only fuel our anxiety, and our social anxieties will grow. Let's use another example so that the concept of the fighting paradox really sinks down into your brain. Many years ago, there was a little girl named Dorothy who had a cute little black dog named Toto. One day, through the medium of a nightmare and a tornado, she found herself in a very different and strange land, a land called Oz, where nothing was quite the same as it was back in Kansas. Dorothy desperately wanted to get back home, so she ended up at the palace of the Wizard of Oz, who lived in a gleaming green emerald city. "I will send you back to Kansas," the Wizard of Oz proclaimed, "if you bring me back the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West." The wizard, of course, knows that to get the Wicked Witch's broomstick, Dorothy and her friends will have to kill her. Now, this wizard is not a very nice guy to be sending an innocent little girl, her dysfunctional friends, and her cute, harmless little dog to kill an awful, wicked, evil witch. After all, the witch is all-powerful. She is omniscient. She knows everything that is going on in the land of Oz. She has a crystal ball, and she can literally see everything. She's omnipotent. She has the power to fly on her broomstick wherever she wants to go, and to send out electricity from her fingertips. She lives in an impenetrable castle, surrounded by a moat, and guarded by regiments of tall men with muskets. She also has an army of flying monkeys, who do her bidding whenever she wants. The Wicked Witch has no equal in the land of Oz. She is all-powerful and all-knowing. How could a little girl or her defenseless friends ever kill the Wicked Witch, who has all the power? Well, you know the story. Eventually, Dorothy, Toto, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion are all caught, trapped, and brought into the dark castle of the Wicked Witch of the West, where they desperately try to escape her clutches. But nothing they try or do works. Dorothy is trapped and confined in a room where the Wicked Witch evilly proclaims her impending execution. "You have this long to live, my little pretty," the Wicked Witch says, as she turns the hourglass upside down and leaves the room. Dorothy then goes through all 5 negative emotional responses we want to learn to avoid. She panics, wails, cries out, gives in to despair, seeks help from her Auntie Em in the crystal ball, gets mad, proclaims she doesn't deserve such a fate, and eventually escapes from her room with the help of her friends. But none of these strategies upset the Wicked Witch of the West. She knows she has things under control. Dorothy's fighting, crying, pitying, and attempts to escape from the castle have all failed. She might not deserve it, and it might not be fair, but Dorothy's hour is up. The Wicked Witch means to kill all of them. What finally saves Dorothy and her friends? Does she find a gun and shoot the Wicked Witch? Does she outsmart her, outmaneuver her, and sneak out of the castle unnoticed? Does she steal the Wicked Witch's broomstick and club her to death? Does she secretly pour poison into the Wicked Witch's tea? No, Dorothy did not do any of these things, and she wouldn't have been very successful if she tried. There's an easier way to get rid of the Wicked Witch, even though it isn't as apparent. Dorothy's liberation from anxiety, fear, doom, and death was an accident. But look at what the accident tells us. The Wicked Witch, also known as wicked social anxiety, is moving in for the kill and loving every minute of it. You can hear the pleasure and the evil in her crisp, cackling voice. She traps our friends in one of her many dark and gloomy hallways that lead nowhere, and wrings her ugly green hands with anticipation and delight. Now, says the Wicked Witch, it's time to see who will die first. The Wicked Witch decides to destroy Dorothy last, so that Dorothy can witness the deaths of her friends and of her cute little dog Toto, too. Dorothy's fear hits the roof when she hears this. She's confused, dazed, sick to her stomach, and feeling defeated. She can see nothing at all she can do. The situation seems completely hopeless. Meanwhile, the Wicked Witch of the West is delirious with her power, and she decides to do away with the Scarecrow first. She dips her broomstick into a torch on the wall, lets out a derisive evil laugh, and takes her burning broomstick and sets the Scarecrow on fire. Now, Dorothy cannot stand to see her friend burn to death, and so she looks around. All that is on her mind is saving her friend's life. As she looks around, she spies a bucket of cool, cold water on the ground, picks it up, and tosses it at the fire that is consuming her friend, the Scarecrow. Dorothy is not being nasty or aggressive. She is simply attempting to save her friend's life. But what happens next is truly a paradox. Some of this cool, cold, calming water trickles over the Wicked Witch of the West, and she immediately begins to scream pitifully. Dorothy has done the one thing that can destroy the Wicked Witch of the West. She has thrown cool, calming water on her